Bismillah walhamdulillah wassalatu wassalamu ala Sayyidina Rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala amma ba'd. So I asked you guys the question that if you could design the perfect life for yourselves, what would that life look like? And we came up with different answers, right? Everyone had a different idea, different conceptualization of what that life might look like. And the important thing to remember is that whatever it is that we're going to come up with, we're going to come up with it based on our understanding, the knowledge that we have. And we're going to use the knowledge that we have about our current life and the knowledge that we have to come up with an imaginary life that we think would be better, we assume would be better. And the issue that arises here is that our knowledge is limited. As you pointed out, we don't know for certain how things would play out. Right? We imagine that my life would be better if I had this. And there is no guarantee that our life would actually be better if we had this. Our assumption is we could use comparison and say, well, if that person seems to be doing better, but there's no guarantee that when that set of circumstances applies to me that my life would necessarily be better, because I'm different than them. We're not the same. And so the way that it affects them could be different than how it affects me. So a lot of what we think about life, how we think life should be, how I wish my life would be, it's rooted in the assumption that I have enough knowledge to imagine how my life would be better than it currently is. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who created us, who gave us the set of circumstances that we find ourselves in. He chose it. He decided it. We didn't choose the families we were born into. Allah chose it. We didn't choose the time period into which we were born into. Allah chose that time period. For us, from our perspective, it's relatively arbitrary. There's no reason why we should exist today and not exist 200 years ago. Could have equally been possible. But lo and behold, here we are. There's no reason why we should not exist on the other side of the world. But lo and behold, we live here. That's the system of Allah. That He decided that we should be where we are. Yet the human being always will imagine a life and a world that they think would be better than their current circumstances. I'm not saying anybody believes this per se. But implicitly, what we're assuming is that we know better than God about what's best for us. Do you understand that? And that's where some scholars, they mention maqamuka haythu aqamaka. Your place in life is wherever God has placed you. And it's hard to imagine though, right? Because we go, surely there's a better place I could be. Surely there's a better place I could be. But again, the question would arise, on what basis are you claiming that it would be better? On what basis? And one might say, on the basis that if I were in that position, then I would be earning this much money, much more than what I earn today. And the assumption is that if I earn more money, I would be better off. But how would that money affect your soul? Do you know? Do you have a guarantee that it wouldn't corrupt your soul? That it wouldn't lead to you being greedy? None of us know that. None of us know with any certainty. Sometimes people will say, well, I wish I had a different family. Why would your family be better? Well, which family would be better? Because the assumption is that I know that family is a nicer family than mine, so if I was in that family, I would be happier. Really? Do you know the ins and outs of that family. You know their inner states, their outer, the way they carry themselves outwardly. Imagine you had a chance to design the world. How would you design it? How much knowledge would you need? To design, you would need to know every single person. Because if you change one variable, things change. So the assumption is that if I just change one variable, meaning me, my life would still remain the same, just get better. Not necessarily. We've seen people make decisions in life that didn't work out. And we've seen people make decisions that they thought were going to be terrible, and it turned out to be one of the best decisions of their lives. Because you can make a decision tomorrow. How do you know how it will play out in 5 years? You don't know. You don't know. You can make a decision based on the variables in front of you, and that's what humans have to do. The point I'm trying to make is we actually get upset with Allah. Do we not? When Allah does not give us the life that we want, the circumstances that we desire, we get upset with Him. Ya Allah, why am I not getting what I want? And it's fascinating. Because it's almost like this false sense of arrogance with Allah. That, oh Allah, I know what's best. And so if you're not giving me what I want, you're letting me settle for this. But that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He introduces His names, Al-Alim, the all-knowing, to us. Al-Khabir, the one who is absolutely informed of all knowledge. We learn about God's name, Al-Hakim, the all-wise. We know about God's name, Alimul Ghaibi wa Shahada, the one who knows that which is apparent and that which is in the unseen. So He introduces these names. The name Al-Alim comes in the Quran over 150 times. God repeats the name, the all-knowing, over 150 times in the Quran. Why would He do that? To repeatedly remind the human being, you don't know what is best. You feel that you know what is best. The fact that you want something doesn't make it best. There's a difference between what you want and what is actually best for you. That should be obvious, hopefully. Right? Think about when it comes to our nutrition. We would want to eat something unhealthy, but we know it's best for us to avoid it. The two can be very different. We can want things that are not good for us because we have a nafs. And so any time that we object to Allah's decision, we express ingratitude. Essentially what we're implying is that, oh Allah, I'm really upset because things aren't the way I want them to be. And the assumption is that, oh Allah, I know what's best for me, and you're just not doing what's best for me. That is the assumption that we're making. But again, we can go back to some examples, as the example was given about the roller coaster. Right, you mentioned that for a long time you wanted to go on a roller coaster. You thought that if you went on a roller coaster, you'd have so much fun. But you ended up becoming nauseous, right? And you threw up. And you realized, oh no, I really don't like roller coasters. How many of us have made decisions in life that we really thought you would like, and you ended up not liking it at all? You thought like, man, if I just travel to that city, if we go like to that country, it's going to be so nice. You got there, you said, I really don't like this. What are we doing here? When's our return? When's the return flight? You know what I'm talking about? You ever bought something because you looked at the box and it looks so delicious, brought it home, you're like, oh, this is terrible. Right? Like the human being thinks, I'll really like it. Or you had a friend introduce you to something. You got to try this. You're going to love it. I know it. And you tried it out and it was so bad. right? And then you were torn between, do I tell them and do I not tell them? If I tell them, I break their heart. If I don't tell them, they're going to make me go again. So what do I do, right? You ever thought you would not like something, and here you are today, you like it? Anyone? Anyone want to share what that is? You know, growing up, I used to see some, like my parents, they would drink chai, tea, in the middle of summer. You know, like boiling hot outside, and they would make hot, hot tea. And I used to be like, really? You're drinking hot tea in the summer? Lo and behold, now I drink hot tea in the middle of summer, right? I just became like my parents now. I could not imagine how someone would enjoy that. And here I am. You wanted to share? Go ahead. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Right. Mm-hmm. Right. Subhanallah. Yeah, for a long time we want something, and Allah gives us something else for us to realize that, wow, this was actually way better for me. Eventually you're just like, yeah, I don't want that at all. Yeah. Subhanallah. Yeah, absolutely. Anyone have any examples? Like my chai, like my tea example? Something you thought you wouldn't like, but you end up now really liking it? Yeah. Sushi. How many of y'all had that experience with sushi? First time you went, did you enjoy it the first time? You remember that you don't like it? Oh, but so it means you never really ended up liking it. This time it'll be different, right? The reviews are better, but it's not actually better. Anyone? No? Yeah. You feel the same about a certain shawarma place. I can't say the name. A certain shawarma place. Okay. Now we're just ranting. You know, I'm just joking. No, mashallah. But that's the human being, right? We assume that we'll like something and we don't end up liking it. My children do it all the time. We go to the store and there I am, pick what you want, right? Like I'm being that parent, pick what you want. They pick what they want, we come home, I don't like this. And then they're upset. We need to go back. I'm like, no, that's why I made you pick it. So that you can't blame anybody but yourself. But their children, they don't see it that way. They look at their siblings, they're like, oh, but look at them, they're enjoying it. Like they picked what they wanted, right? That's the fear of, you know, when you go to the store and there's a new flavor, it's a gamble. You can go with your tried and tested, right? But I could try the new one. But then what if it's not good? Then I have my whole evening ruined because that plan is to eat that and watch that. So what do you do? Some people go with, how many of you go with the gamble? Gamble with the new flavor. How many of you? How many of you say no, tried and tested? Someone else can try the gamble. We got some risk-averse people here, mashallah. It's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. Alhamdulillah. I'm also very much tried and tested, you know? Certainty over doubt, you know? Like, I have certainty this is good. I don't know about this one. But that's how we are. We don't know. We don't know. The human being does not know for sure. And so really we have to ask ourselves, when we object, when we're upset with Allah over something, do we really have a basis for it? Are we so confident that, Ya Allah, I know what's better for me, why are you giving me this? So Allah tells us in the Quran repeatedly, He says that He is the all-knowing, Al-Alim. And when we look around the world, we see that things, they're not always as we would like to see them. For example, we look in our own lives. Recently we covered one of Allah's names, Al-Mujib, the one who responds to your supplications, your du'as, when you call upon Him and ask for your needs. Yet many of us will notice that we make dua and our needs are not answered, at least it seems. Allah tells us He is the all-just. We see so much injustice around us. He says He's the most compassionate. And we see a lot of cruelty in the world. And one begins to wonder what's going on. Allah reminds us that He is Al-Alim, the all-knowing, that He's fully aware of what is happening. So then the question arises for us, which is, oh Allah, if you know about all of this, why aren't you stopping it? Why are you not changing it? And there are levels to this answer, but one is that the nature of life is a test. And for that test to be valid, people must be given free will to exercise and to then make decisions that sometimes are not good. And God does not intervene in the test, allows it to play out. But even more, the assumption is that its absence would be better than its presence. What is the best test? What's the best test? Is the best test the easiest one that guarantees that everyone can pass? No. I think anyone who's a teacher or has done any teaching knows that's not the greatest test, the one that everybody can pass. Is the greatest test that nobody can pass? It's so difficult? No. Then what's the best test? The best test is the one that actually challenges you. It challenges everybody in different ways. Some people are really good with the conceptual questions. Some people are really good with the open-ended, explain in your own words questions. Everyone gets tested. Everyone has a chance to pass. It's not too easy for people. It's not too difficult. That's how we consider to be a good test. The test of life is what Allah decides. As Al-Alim, the one who knows everything, so when He designs the test, it is the best test. Our assumption is that, oh Allah, I don't like what I'm seeing in the world. The assumption is I have a better idea of how the test should be. Basically, one of my main messages here at the beginning is what? That we need to humble ourselves. We need to humble ourselves and realize that when we're objecting to Allah's decision, that we're implicitly claiming, I know we don't claim it explicitly, but implicitly the message and the assumption is, oh Allah, I know what's better for myself. I know what's better for the world. I know what's better for the people around me. And that's just not the case. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in the Quran, it's a very well-known verse. وَعَسَىٰ أَن تَكْرَهُ شَيْئًا وَهُوَ خَيْرٌ لَكُمْ. Perhaps you may dislike something when that very thing is best for you. And perhaps you may like something when that very thing is actually not good for you. Do you know how Allah finishes the verse? وَاللَّهُ يَعْلَمُ وَأَنْتُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. Allah knows and you don't know. Allah knows and you don't know. Well, what do human beings really know? Are a lot of eggs good for you? And some people are like, no, too much cholesterol. Other people are not really. How many times has the medical opinion changed on this? This is human beings' knowledge. It's like changes all the time. The latest research. What's the best way to handle complex trauma? And you have methods. And then you have further research. And it continuously evolves. Right? There was a time where electric shocks were considered a good way to manage what? People's seizures. It's ajib. The human being's knowledge is limited, deficient, constantly evolving, many a times not even certain, but we get ahead of ourselves and we assume we know what's best. Allah reminds us, you don't know what's best. You barely know what's best for you in the world, let alone existentially know what is the best way for you to live. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not only Al-Alim. He's not only the one who knows everything. He introduces us to another name called Al-Khabir. Al-Khabir, Al-Imam Ibn Al-Qayyim and Imam Al-Ghazali both say. They say Al-Khabir, it means the one who has knowledge of the most hidden secrets. The most hidden secrets. See, we might know things because someone told us or we heard it. Someone made it public. Al-Khabir is the one who knows that which has never been made public. Allah in the Quran, in the 20th chapter, the 7th verse, Surah Taha, Allah Ta'ala describes Himself as يَعْلَمُ السِّرَّ وَأَخْفَى. He knows the secret and He knows what is even more hidden than a secret. So what's a secret? A secret would be you call someone, you tell them a secret. And now only you and them know the secret. So I could tell you a secret, but the secret probably wouldn't be too personal because I don't know you all that well. Compared to my wife, I would probably tell my wife, if it's a secret, I'm much more personal. I'd be more comfortable. A much more personal secret. So the secrets that she knows would be very different than the secrets that other people would know. But it's still a secret. It's still something that's shared. And then there are things that I haven't shared with anyone. There are probably things that you have not shared with anyone. And so that's a secret that's just between you and yourself. What's more hidden than a secret? What's more hidden than a secret? That's a tough question, huh? Yeah. Intentions, okay. Intentions could be more hidden. Could be, potentially. What else? Yeah. Like a reality that you're ignoring? Okay. But you might know it. Oftentimes we know it. We just don't acknowledge it. So the issue is acknowledgement. It's not that we don't know of it. More hidden than a secret. The commentators give different meanings of it here. Ibn Abbas, one of the commentators, he said, "Asirru ma asarrahu ibn Adam fi nafsi." A secret is what you keep to yourself, within you. It's hidden. But he says, "Wa akhfa," what is even more hidden than a secret is ما أخفي على ابن آدم مما هو فاعله قبل أن يعلمه فالله يعلم ذلك كله. He says what is even more hidden than a secret are those things that we don't even know about before doing them. It's even more hidden than a secret. Why? Because you haven't even made the intention yet. What's going to happen tomorrow night? What are you going to do tomorrow night? You don't know. You don't know what's going to happen tomorrow night. It's the ghaib. But Allah knows. It's even more hidden than the secret. Dhahak, one of the commentators, he said, أَسِرُّ مَا تُحَدِّثُ بِهِ نَفْسُكَ وَأَخْفَى مَا لَمْ تُحَدِّثْ بِهِ نَفْسَكَ بَعْدُ. He said, a secret is what you tell yourself, like it's something you acknowledge consciously. He says, what is more hidden than a secret is something that's hidden from your conscious awareness. And this happens. If you ever, people who work with therapists, very trained therapists, psychoanalysts, these are people who attempt to dig deep and draw out what is happening below the surface levels of awareness. And only when you approach it the right way are you able to get to it. Because it's so hidden. The human being is very complex. And that's why you have something called depth psychology. The idea that there is depth to the human psyche. And for many of us, we're only aware at the surface level. But when you dig deep, you find things that you're not aware of. Fears that you didn't even know you had. Insecurities that you were not aware of. But all of it was operating and functioning just away from your awareness. You know, Sa'id ibn Jubayr, he said, a secret is something that you will, mention to yourself today because you're aware of it. What are you going to whisper to yourself tomorrow? You don't even know. Let alone do. You don't even know what you're going to whisper to yourself tomorrow. And Allah knows. And so, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who knows not only what is apparent, but He knows what is even hidden from ourselves about ourselves. And that's really interesting because, again, it's a reminder. You think you know what's best for yourself, but that's all based on your surface level knowledge of who you are. Do you get that? What if we were to consider that Allah has made decisions for us, for what's best for us, not merely based on what's the apparent that we know of, but even based on that which we're not even aware of. And that's why so often some of the most difficult circumstances in life bring out the best in us. So often. And it's interesting because those circumstances we would often never choose. So Allah brings it upon us. And I was talking to someone recently and they were telling me about a real difficult situation they found in life. Really, in 1 week, how many things fell apart for them? Relationships, their career, so many things fell apart. And since that time though, they said, I have made such transformations in my own life that I've wanted to do for the longest time, but I was never able to. So on the one hand, things are falling apart. But on the other hand, it's the catalyst, the motivating factor to push them to better themselves. I'll give you an example here. Sometimes people receive a diagnosis that really troubles them, understandably. It's a diagnosis that tells them that there's something wrong, that health-wise they have something to be concerned about. But how many people say that it was a diagnosis that finally pushed them to make the changes they needed to make, to mend the relationships that were important to them? If given the choice, if Allah said, okay, one day you received a text message, would you like to receive a diagnosis today about such and such illness? Nobody would ever sign up for it. A text message comes your way, would you like to lose your job and your relationship fall apart? No way, no one's going to sign up for it. Because we don't know what's best for us. We would say no, no, no. But Allah brings it into our life. And we don't like it. We have a period, for a lot of us, the initial period is what? Denial. No way, no way. Ya Allah, how could you do this? We fight it, we resist it. But subhanAllah, down the line, we have a moment we look back and go, wow, this is literally exactly what I needed. I'll give you an example. Imagine someone has a bad habit of lying. They lie. For everything they lie. You know what's one of the greatest blessings for that person? Is to get exposed. One of the greatest blessings. But it's the last thing that they want. It's the last thing that they want, is to be exposed. But it's their greatest need. Because finally, for many people who have this habit, when they are finally exposed, they realize the depth of the harm that they've caused. And they can either make a decision to change or not, but it gives them that clarity and realization. But again, these are situations that we would never sign up for. Allah in His infinite mercy gives us those opportunities. We reject them. We don't like them. We get upset with God about them, not realizing that it's what we need. As parents, how many of you have made a decision for your child that in the moment they fought, but later on they were grateful for. You put them in those classes and they're like, Mom, Dad, you're so mean. Like, none of my friends go to these classes. And later on, what? It was because of those classes that they did well. You signed them up for a sport. When they started, Mom, I just want to be at home watching TV. Why are you making me do this sport? I don't want to do this sport. And years later, that child is so passionate about that sport and so grateful. Thank you, Mom. Thank you, Dad, for signing me up. Because we don't know what's best. We don't know what we're going to enjoy. Do you get what I'm saying? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not just Al-Alim or Al-Khabir, the one who knows everything, the one who is aware of the most hidden secrets. No, He tells us another name in the Quran, repeatedly, the name Al-Hakim, the all-wise. Because you could have a lot of knowledge but lack wisdom. You ever met someone who knows a lot but just lacks the social awareness of when to say what? You know what I'm talking about? Little children have it often when they learn a lot of facts. They'll just regurgitate facts everywhere. You ever seen that? And you're like, oh, this is not the time for it. Right? They learn something about like minerals and vitamins and stuff, and you take them to like a restaurant, and they're like, Mom, Dad, this food has way too much salt. And it's like, just let me like enjoy my cheat meal here. You know what I mean? Like, wrong time. They just speak because they don't know, right? They don't know the appropriate time and place. Children learn something about, when children learn about religion, it's very interesting. Because religion, the teachings of religion are what are considered realities. But of course, not everybody's ready to face reality. And so children will learn something like, when people pass away, they go to paradise. Believers, right? And then they'll go to a funeral, and they'll see family members crying. They'll be like, why are they crying? The dead person's, the deceased is going to paradise. Why is everybody crying? You're like, no. Like, that's not the appropriate thing to say right now. Let them cry, let them grieve. But the kid doesn't know. They have knowledge of something. They just don't know the appropriate time to share it or mention it. Allah Ta'ala is Al-Hakim. Not only is the one who knows everything and knows the hidden secrets, but knows the appropriate manner, method, time, place for things to play out. See, we might have changed our life and how it looked. We might have also changed the timeline. I wish I had waited more years before I got married. I wish I had gotten married earlier. And we assume that we know the best timing for everything. We assume that. And that's just not how it is, though. One of the most classic, I think, examples of this in the Quran for us to reflect on is the 12th chapter of the Quran, the story of the Prophet Yusuf, the Prophet Joseph in the Quran. Allah has a whole chapter dedicated to the Prophet Yusuf. At the very beginning, in verse 6, Allah Ta'ala, on the tongue of the father of Joseph, the Prophet Yaqub, Jacob, he tells his son, after his son has a dream, he tells him that, "O Yusuf, O Joseph, your Lord will choose you to be a prophet. He'll teach you the interpretation of dreams, and He will perfect His favor upon you." Basically, He's going to bless you in your life. And at the end of the verse, he says, "Surely your Lord is all-knowing, all-wise. Inna rabbaka alimun hakim." That's the advice given to the Prophet Yusuf. And then what happens? What happens then? He's given a dream. The assumption is what? Things are going to be great. God's going to bless me. People have istikhara dreams. Right? Oh, this is going to be great. And what happens to the Prophet Yusuf? The very next stop, bottom of the well. By who? His own brothers. That's not how things work out. That if there's goodness to come your way, that it must necessarily, every step along the way must be better and better and better and better until it what? It's perfect. No. You ever heard in English it gets worse before it gets better? That's the story right there. First stop, bottom of the well. What did he take with him? The Prophet Yusuf at the bottom of the well, sold into slavery, into the palace, then into prison. The whole time, all he gets to take with him is what? Inna rabbaka alimun hakim. Indeed, my Lord is all-knowing, all-wise. Meaning what? He finds himself in the bottom of the well. What was my dad talking about? It's going to be good for me. God's going to bless me. Why am I here at the bottom of a well? That would be a logical question. But that's not what he says. He never objects because what? He was told, your Lord knows what is best, and he is all-wise because he knows when the right time for everything is. The right time for everything is. And look how, subhanAllah, his whole story is moment after moment of trust. And the whole time, and this is an important point to remember, is Allah will test us not just once. Was the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ tested once? Do you ever find like his time of retirement? Finally done all my Prophet stuff, now I can just chill? There's nothing. There's never a moment where Allah said, okay, now is the days where you just don't have to deal with any suffering. At every level, Allah tested him. Allah tested him in not one child, but multiple children. Not only in one parent, both parents, uncle, grandfather, wife, another uncle, close friends, people close to him, his companions. He tested him with poverty, days where he had to go having tied a stone and rock around his stomach. It was not one test. And this is important because I think we have this, idea that if I just pass one test in life, after that God needs to bless me to the end. It's not the story in the life of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and not in the life of the Prophet Yusuf or any other prophet for that matter. The Prophet Yusuf, bottom of the well. Where is his father? At home crying. And look at this moment. He's at home, his sons come to him, they lie to him. Ultimately, what does the Prophet Yaqub say after his sons lie about what happened? He says, فَصَبْرٌ جَمِيلٌ. I guess I'm going to endure with beautiful patience. I'm going to say something that's going to be very bitter, but it's just the truth. In life, you won't always be able to change your circumstance. You're just going to have to sometimes learn to live with it. No, but Shaykh, like surely there must be some. Sometimes there isn't. Someone passes away. God forbid. But someone close to you passes away. What are you going to do? What are you going to do about it? You can fight with God about it. God, why'd you do that? Why'd you take them? There must be some activism we could do, Shaykh, to bring them back. There's none. Is there a dua? Is there some type of like dhikr I could do? No. They're gone. They're gone. All you can do is exercise patience. And this is a tough one. Because we have this, idea that, maybe you watch too many movies. You know those movies where someone seems like they passed away, and then last second, they're in the coffin and they're knocking on it. No, I was actually just, unconscious. It's like, that's not how life is. You don't always get a happy ending to the story. People leave, tragedies happen, and sometimes you're left with no answers. That's another really difficult one. The Prophet Yusuf is at the bottom of the well. Allah in the Quran mentions that when he's at the bottom of the well, Allah reveals to him, وَأَوْحَيْنَا إِلَيْهِ لَتُنَبِّئَنَّهُمْ بِأَمْرِهِمْ هَذَا وَهُمْ لَا يَشْعُرُونَ. Allah reveals to him, oh Yusuf, the day's going to come where your brothers are going to stand in front of you and you will tell them about everything that they did and they won't even know who you are. Oh, that's good to know, right? That's good to know. It's good to know that the future is going to be better. Here's the problem. Allah did not tell him when. Allah did not tell him when. That is one of the greatest challenges for us. You will find yourself in situations in life where when you look in the Quran, Allah will say, for those who bear patiently, they have endless reward. There's a lot of promises for people. The one who trusts in God, He will open up a way for them. You read these promises. So what do you go? What do you think? You think, okay, I'll just observe patience. I'll trust God. And that's part of the test. What's the other part? Not knowing when the help will come. Right? Not knowing when the help will come. When? Okay, it must be soon. How soon? The Prophet Yusuf is told what? Oh, Yusuf, you're at the bottom of the well right now, but the day will come, you will tell your brothers about what happened. And he doesn't know. And sometimes that makes things very difficult. You know, my son, sometimes I get my son to work out. He's like 9 years old. I get him to do some burpees and stuff. Now, my son, and some of you might be like this too. If I just tell him, just do burpees, and I'll tell you when to stop, it's so difficult for him. He always wants to know how many reps left. Tell me how many reps left. Right? It's very interesting. How many of you are like that? That if someone gives you a target, like 25, you're like, okay. But if it's just do it until we say stop. Oh, like that's so difficult. How many of you find reps, like a set target, is much easier? Anybody? It's really interesting, right? Why? What's the difference? 25 reps where you know the end point, for some of us is easier than 15 when we don't know the end point. Why? Because bearing the test is challenging, but the uncertainty of its ending is also a separate test. And so when you have certainty about when it comes to an end, it makes it easier. Right? Now imagine you're waiting for something in life. And imagine you had a date 10 years from now. Even though it would take 10 years to happen, at least you would tell yourself what? You would tell yourself, well, at least I know when it's going to happen. At least I know when, even if it's 10 years. At least I know when. That's why, my son, when we're traveling somewhere, he wants to see, Google Maps gives you the number of minutes. He always wants to know. It's very interesting. How much longer? I need to know. I'll say, inshallah, we'll get there. No. How many minutes? Like, I need to know the ending of this whole journey. Very fascinating. The Prophet Yusuf has no guarantee. Nothing. Only that it will come. So, can we pass that test when Allah puts us in that position? See, Allah tells us a story in the Quran about how He is the most knowledgeable. He knows. And He knows the best time for our test to come to an end. He knows the best time. Better than we know for ourselves. He tells us a story of the Prophet Musa and Khabir. And this is in the 18th chapter in Surah Al-Kahf. This is the Prophet Moses when he asks Allah, "Oh Allah, who's the most knowledgeable person on earth?" And he's told, a servant of mine, who's known as Khabir. Go to him, and you will find him to have knowledge that's unique and exclusive to him because we've given it to him directly. مِن لَدُنَّا عِلْمًا. Musa goes and travels, and the Prophet Moses meets Khabir. To summarize the story, he accompanies this man, Khabir. And this man does 3 things that don't make sense to him. He damages a boat. He causes the death of a child, a young man. And finally, he's in a village where the people are not very welcoming, and he mends their wall for them without taking money. Every single time the Prophet Musa objects. Why did you do this? I don't understand. And what's interesting is after these 3 incidents in the Quran, Allah mentions how the Prophet Khabir turns, or Khabir, there's no agreed upon unanimous agreement that he was a prophet at all. Khabir turns to the Prophet Moses And he gives an explanation. He gives him closure. One scholar, he described it as the Khabir moment. That you know what? Sometimes in life you have a Khabir moment. A moment where God chooses that company for you that you didn't want. But you somehow get clarity. The company that you wanted to join, suddenly you find some news comes out of the toxic work culture and you're like, thank God. Right? Like that's closure of what God protected you from. You really wanted a certain relationship to work out. It didn't work out. Afterwards, you found out this person was involved in so many terrible things. You're like, dodged a bullet. Right? You got closure of why it didn't work out. One scholar, he mentions, but not everybody gets that Khabir moment. He said, the owners of the boat, the young man, his family, the young man who was killed, his family, he said they didn't get a Khabir moment. The Quran doesn't mention that they ever found out why what happened. We are not owed closure from God. That's a challenging one. Because we want to know, Ya Allah, why did you take this person from me? Ya Allah, why did you? I'm trying to do something right. Why did this relationship not work out? I didn't even do it in a haram way. Why did it fall apart? I was trying to follow the example of the sunnah of your prophet. It didn't work out. Where did we go wrong? Why does my child not talk to me? What happened? Do you understand? Sometimes you don't get that answer. And we have to be okay with that. How can you be okay with something that you don't understand and know? Each time we're expected to remember that Allah is the one who knows everything. He knows not only what's apparent, which may be only what we know. Sometimes all we know is what's apparent. Allah knows what is the innermost secrets of that situation. And it's very important for us to remind ourselves. Because that's where it's easy when you have the Khabir moment to be patient, right? When you get all the explanation, you're like, okay, you're grateful to Allah for protecting you from the harms of what you were considering, gratitude, patience, all of that. Can you be patient when you have no closure? Can you be? But that's the test. The test is, oh Allah, I don't have an answer. I don't know why. It makes no sense to me. But I trust that if this decision came from you, that it is best. Why? Because whatever I think is best is based on my limited knowledge, which is very limited, which is blind to so many variables. But what you've decided is based on your infinite knowledge, based on your infinite wisdom, your knowledge of the apparent and the hidden. And when someone has that perspective, that's a sign of their deep connection, relationship, and love of God. That's why Allah tells us these names: Al-Alim, Al-Khabir, Al-Hakim. Now, how do we live with these names? Number one, when we know that God is the all-knowing, the all-wise, who knows even the most hidden of secrets, we must trust that all of God's commands are for our good. The laws that we have in Islam, they're not just restrictive. They're not just to make life difficult. Imagine if we began to understand or think that, wait, the commands are actually there to help me. When Allah commands me to do something, it's actually to make my life better. And that's why, there's one of the scholars, he mentioned that if there was something, he asked a question once to his students. He said, if you could change something about Islam, you had the choice, what would you change? And so some people were like, well, Sheikh, we get rid of 5 prayers, man, because every day, 5 times, it's a lot. And someone's like, we would get rid of all you can't eat this food, you can't eat that food, haram stuff. Just to eat. Imagine you could just eat anything everywhere. And some people were like, man, we'll just get rid of Fajr. We're okay with the other 4, but Fajr, no. Some people are like, Ramadan? No, bro, I need my coffee. And the teacher said, the one who truly believes that every one of God's commands is a reflection of his knowledge and wisdom, that he would only command what is best for his servants and forbid them from what is harmful for his servants, such a person would want nothing to be changed about Islam. Such a person would want nothing to be changed. Because they would understand that every one of God's commands is the best for us. And every one of his prohibitions is something that protects us. 5 prayers, no doubt, is challenging. But imagine we began to look at them as, these are chances for me to ground myself and reorient myself in life. Remind myself that I have problems in life, like I have this Excel spreadsheet, but God is greater. God is greater than my problems. God is greater than whatever it is that I'm struggling with right before the prayer. It really reorients you in life. That if you haven't lost God, then you have everything. Right? And so that's why the commands of Allah have to be looked at from that lens, as the best way for humans to live. Look, when you buy something and you run into issues, what do? How many of you go Google it, right? Your phone stops working. So what do? You go and Google, I don't know, you go on your laptop, I guess, and Google it, right? Like, why is my phone not turning on? Something's not working. You go Google it. And you assume that the manufacturers would know best on how to fix it. Allah Ta'ala reminds us in the Quran when He says, أَلَا يَعْلَمُ مَنْ خَلَقَ? In the 67th chapter, verse 14, God says, does He not know His own creation? Allah knows us better than we know ourselves. And so when He commands us, it's because He knows us better than we know ourselves, and He knows what's best for us. Many of us as parents, when you have young children, we believe we know what's best for that child even better than that child knows for themselves, no? And so we try to guide them towards what we think is best for them. We're still humans, we're still susceptible to mistakes. God is the creator. He knows His creation better than anyone. And the last point, Allah is Al-Alim, the most knowledgeable. The one who knows all things. Our religion is founded and predicated on the concept of knowledge. Ours is not a religion of blind following and it doesn't make sense, but I'll just accept it. Not everything will we be able to understand because the intellect has limits. But there is no doubt that in our religion, the first command was to recite, to read, to educate ourselves, to seek knowledge. And in seeking knowledge, we have a better understanding and appreciation of God's creation. And when we approach it from that lens, all of our studies become a means of spiritual growth. Biology is not just a mere, science disconnected from any spiritual significance. It becomes a deeply spiritual study because now you're studying God's creation. And you marvel at how incredible God is. Psychology is the same. Arguably the brain is the most incredible part of the human being. And anyone who studies the human brain, the neurotransmitters, and just how, it functions. And we continue to discover. We're still just discovering many of the functionalities and how things work. And it's just incredible to know that we use our intellects to try to make sense of creation. Al-Alim is the one who created it and knows everything about it. And yet I still question His decisions and object to when He allows for things to go in ways that I don't like. May Allah Ta'ala grant us tawfiq to really, really understand these names, to use these names as a means of comfort, of solace, of grounding in our moments of uncertainty, in our moments of worry and anxiety and grief, and stress. Ameen ya Rabbal Alameen. وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وآله وصحبه أجمعين والحمد لله رب العالمين. All right, now inshallah, we will play a game of Kahoot.